But let's dive into it, Steven. So we're back from Nashville. We survived our trip. We ate a lot of good hot food, all that kind of stuff. Steven did some go-karting. We saw a lot of live music. It was lots of fun. But we're back. And now what we're looking at is the fallout of free agency. So before we ride off into the sunset for a few weeks, we want to look at how fantasy values of certain players changed. So I'm ready to get started, Steven, if you are.
All right, we'll start with our risers, of course. And the first one we got to go with is Tyler Bertuzzi going to the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, Tyler Bertuzzi, there might be some people out there who perceive it as a lateral move because he was already playing on a really good team with the Boston Bruins and producing. But to me, it's the money he's receiving that's locking him into a major role. So people forget with the Bruins, he was spending a lot of time on the third line until injuries sort of made them juggle the lineup a little bit, right? But with the Leafs at the AAV 5 million plus, he's going to be playing with some combination of Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner or John Tavares and for now, William Nylander. Either way, we know he's going to be playing with some of the highest skill line mates he's ever had. And I don't see him falling out of that top six. So I think he has a chance to post career numbers this season. And it's a contract year, 1-year deal. So he's motivated to score a big deal with that cap going up next summer.
Yeah, and the thing about Bertuzzi is he's like a legitimate, proven like points producer, and going to Toronto, where, with all due respect to Michael Bunting, like Michael Bunting, when he wasn't playing with the star elite talent of that Leafs team, was not as good as he should be. And with Bertuzzi, we know he can already do that. So going in there and he's going to be challenging for a lot of ice time in Toronto. We obviously said that. It is interesting though between him and Max Domi signing very short term deals. Um, what is this term? What is this team's long term outlook here? Are they like, if it doesn't work this year, are they going to blow things up? That's the sign that gets to me. But if this is the year they're all going to go all in, basically getting these big players in 1-year deals, maybe this means that this could be beneficial for all parties involved. So I like that one for sure. Now, a former Toronto Maple Leafs, because got to make everything Leafs, of course. That's a joke. Connor Brown.
Yeah, Connor Brown, definitely one of the biggest steals of July 1st because of that performance bonus laden contract. His cap hit is pretty much nothing. Because of the fact that he spent more than 100 days on LTIR, it triggers the capability to sign him to one of those deals that typically would be reserved for a player 35 or older. So you can get him in a nothing cap hit, and there's still potential for him to earn up to, I think it's something like $4 million. And he's probably going to get an extended look on that first line. He has the chemistry with Connor McDavid going back to their days with the Erie Otters, and Connor Brown really lit it up playing with McDavid. So it would be silly for them to not see if that chemistry is still there. We know he's going to get a chance with McDavid, or it could be Leon Draisaitl. Either way, I think Connor Brown, there's a big opportunity because the Oilers, they've struggled to fill that right wing spot. Kyler Yamamoto wasn't the guy. Jesse Puljujarvi wasn't the guy. So we're going to see Connor Brown get the biggest opportunity of his career. He's a solid player already, 16 goals, 40 points per 82 games in his career. Also very dangerous shorthanded. So we're going to see him play in many different situations. And I think it's going to be a fun guy to draft as sort of one of your mid to late round sleepers.
I'm excited just to see him bounce back after all the kind of just the last couple of years. As a talented player that just needs to get that ice time, and the salary incentive is there too to really perform and to stay healthy. Not like there's any incentive to score and stay healthy, but now it's like this could be how you make your money this year with that salary bonuses. I like that one. Next one, Matt Duchene. The one of the top guys moving this year. Nashville Predators bottom out, going the Dallas Stars. The rich keep getting richer.
Yeah, Matt Duchene to me is a fun addition for the Dallas Stars. He's a versatile piece. And it's funny, he's a year older than Tyler Seguin. He was drafted in '09. Tyler Seguin was drafted in 2010. But it feels like Duchene is younger. His body, I would argue, is younger. He's got fresher legs, better speed. So I could see Duchene leapfrogging Tyler Seguin and taking his spot in a number 2 center role. That said, you could also see Wyatt Johnston elevate to the number 2 center, and Matt Duchene has shown the ability to play the wing in recent seasons as well. He played a lot of right wing the year that he had 2 seasons ago, or the season before this one, which was his career year, 43 goals, 86 points, not far removed from such a good year. And this Dallas team has some of the most talent he's ever played with in his career. So I think there's a really nice bounce back setup here for Matt Duchene. A lot less pressure on him, playing for only $3 million. And at worst, he's going to be in that top 9, but I think you'll see him move all around the top 9. He'll get looks on every line, power play, all that stuff. So I like Matt Duchene. for a nice bounce back. He's someone I usually avoid in fantasy, but this year I'm actually going to be buying.
Yeah, he still produced a lot of points. It just wasn't worth the contract, and that was just a simple fact. And at the current price he's going to be going there on a team as good as that, it's kind of like for Dallas. The depth was a nice bonus, but now they got a big depth piece. Well, I don't want to say big depth piece because he'll probably play high in the lineup, but another scoring piece, and they didn't really have to give up anything to get it. Like that's a good sign there for the Dallas Stars. Another fantastic, I will call this one a depth piece though, is Jonathan Drouin going to Colorado. May get a chance to play with his old buddy McKinnon. To be fair, that was a very long time ago. I don't expect them to play together right away. Be cool to see a preseason game just to see that connection and see if there is something there. But Jonathan Drouin going to Colorado.
Yeah, and hey, it's possible that this signing ends up being a bust and Jonathan Duran is finished being an effective NHLer. Yes. But that said, he's only 28 years old. He obviously has that past history with his very good buddy Nathan McKinnon going back to their days in Halifax. Also, this is really important. Nathan McKinnon was the one who recruited Jonathan Durant to sign with the Colorado Avalanche. He wants him there. He wants him to play with him. The Avalanche brass, they've already discussed the idea of how it would be silly not to give them a look together to see what they have. So we do know already that Jonathan Durant is going to get a shot with Nathan McKinnon and maybe Mikko Rantanen. In terms of just line mates, Jonathan Durant has never had anything like that in his career. I guess maybe in his early Tampa Bay days, but just in terms of superstars in their prime, this is an incredible situation for Durant to land in. So to me, why he's exciting is yes, it's possible he goes bust, but there's no risk. He's not going to cost that much in fantasy draft. He's probably going to be selected outside the top 200 picks. That's a fun flyer to me. So I see a definite rise in his fantasy value for now.
I love that one a lot. Another guy that I'd really like there, Blake Wheeler. Another one where I'm surprised with his salary, with the buyout of how much money he's making, he didn't need a huge salary. But for him to go for what was it, $800,000 was like a little ridiculous that he didn't go higher than that.
That's right. And with the cap hit being so small, there is a mini pitfall there in the sense that if Wheeler's not working out, they could drop him lower in the lineup. Fair. But overall, if you look at the way the team's being constructed, they've been looking for help at the right wing for a long time. They brought in, of course, Tarasenko and Kane last year. It didn't really work out for either guy. Tarasenko had his moments, but overall, I think both those trades were they landed closer on the bust side. We also know that Capo Caco has not been able to elevate into the top six consistently. So that kid line with Lafreniere, Phil Hedl is sort of locked in as the third line, which means there's still opportunity to climb in terms of having a big role in the top six for Blake Wheeler. So to me, we're either going to see him play with Chris Kreider and Mika Zibanejad or Artemi Panarin, Vincent Trocheck. So I like the situation there. Yes, Blake Wheeler consistently had good line mates in Winnipeg, but this is also just a new situation, a chance to win, a nice move from a motivation standpoint for someone who it seems like he had sort of not checked out, but sort of lost the joy for the game in Winnipeg. And still quietly, even at 36 years old, averaging 71 points per 82 games over the last 3 seasons. So Blake Wheeler's not done being a productive NHL player. And I like the situation he's landed in with the Rangers.
People were calling him finished, done, like it's over. Like maybe in the sense of him going and competing for 75, 80 points a year, but Blake Wheeler's not a bad hockey player. Like that's
Yeah.
just the reality here. He's yeah, he might be 325 years old at this point, but he's still pretty good at that. And he's still quite effective. It just he needed to change the scenery. Regardless of like salary cap or whatever, he needed to get out of Winnipeg. He got it. Let's see what happens now on a very competitive team. John Klingberg, who, last year signed a prove himself contract to see what he's able to do, and the only thing that did was hurt his cap hit, and he's gonna make it a bit less money going to Toronto, but he's got an opportunity to really revive his career here and really kind of be a huge contributor to a team that everyone expects each year to do really well. They fall short in the playoffs, but going out there and they lost guys like Justin Hall. They lost guys like Rasmus Sandin a while back. They lost Eric Gustafsson. So they've lost some key pieces there. In theory, Klingberg can be a step up, but will he?
Yeah. So the disclaimer here is that we're talking fantasy hockey risers, not real hockey
Yes.
risers. So I'm very worried about John Klingberg in real life. If you look at the way Jake Gardiner was run out of town and Justin Holl, John Klingberg has been atrocious defensively in his last season or two. I'm extremely concerned that he's going to be the new scapegoat, and I don't see how Toronto is a fit for someone who seems to have lost his confidence. I don't get it for Klingberg. I'm very worried about him. But from a fantasy perspective, he's landing on a much better offensive team than the Ducks and the Minnesota Wild. He's going to have a lot of talent around him. He can still move the puck. His offensive ability is still there. And I think it's possible you see him get looks if the Leafs end up trying to change things up on their power play. Maybe he gets a little look on the top unit, at least the second unit, even at even strength. He's going to have a lot of skill players around him. So I do think we're going to see a nice spike in fantasy value from John Klingberg. I could easily see him being a 40-point player this season, not to the heyday where he was the top 10 fantasy defenseman for his entire prime, pretty much. But I think just back to being fantasy relevant, rosterable in medium leagues. I think we can expect that from John Klingberg. That said, defensively, oh man, it's going to be ugly, I think.
It's seeing some charts and seeing that people were really valuing Eric Gustafson a bit more. A guy who very notably in his career is not great defensively is a sign that uh-oh. But we'll see. I think this is someone who, he's gonna have some good if he plays in the power play, he's gonna have some good guys to pass to. Regardless, he should have some good guys to pass to this year. So we'll see how that works for his fantasy value. Cam Talbot and okay, well that's an interesting one. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's funny. The last few guys on our risers list, like I'm not going to sound super enthusiastic. It's like begrudging risers, but hey, so Cam Talbot, it's like okay, yeah, his value went up. I don't necessarily love the signing for LA. I thought they aimed too low. I thought they had a real chance to solidify themselves as an elite Stanley Cup contender if they went out and got someone like a Connor Hellebuck or Thatcher Demko. Talbot, he's better than Phoenix Copley. He's better than David Riddick, who they also signed. So I think he has the inside track to be the starting goaltender on a good team. So that in and of itself constitutes a nice jump in Cam Talbot's fantasy value. It's the best opportunity he's had at the very least since he was in Minnesota. And even then, he was battling Marc-Andre Fleury. I think he has the leg up on Copley. So in my opinion, this is a jump for value for Cam Talbot. I know Copley showed a lot last season, but again, he's a journeyman. He's already older than 30 years old. I think he's 30 or 31 the last I checked. So he's not as young as people think. We already know who he is, I think, at this point. So I like Cam Talbot to get the lion's share of the starts for LA this year.
This is, I think, a given, but I'm concerned about this team's goaltending situation, considering they went all in on centerman and going everything with the roster they have this year. It's a competitive group, and they got Cam Talbot as their goalie. Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't love that one, but the guy he did replace, Jonas Corposalo.
Yeah, again, this is another begrudging one. I don't know if I love the signing for Ottawa, 5 years at $4 million a year. It kind of reminds me of the Matt Murray deal that they signed a few years back that turned out to be disastrous. That said, again, if we're just looking at the value, they gave him $4 million a year. So that's definitely 1A starter-ish money. So now we know that Corpusalo is locked in to a starting role on a team that wants to make the playoffs, on a team that seems to be getting better on paper every year. And that gives him significant fantasy value on a team that I think at worst Ottawa is a top 20 team in the league, maybe top 18 with upside to be better than that. Corpusalo looked much better this past season with a healthy hip. And I think now that he has stability in his role, in goaltending and fantasy, stability is so important. You want that volume because the overall performance can be so fickle year to year. When you're drafting, what you're looking for are guys that have locked in roles that are going to play a significant number of games. So Corpusalo right now, his floor is probably 45 starts with the Senators this year.
I gotta say that this is not the first time that Cam Talbot was involved in like a free agency trade with the goalie, where he was a goalie in Ottawa, Corpusalo was a goalie in LA. They switched. It was Talbot and Mike Smith also did the same thing between Edmonton and Calgary. So I thought that was maybe I was the only one who cared. I just found
And
that
then wasn't
interesting.
and Philip Gustafson last year too, but it wasn't free agency. It was just an actual
That,
trade.
that that was that was a legitimate trade. So
Yeah.
there's that one. So, but it's like he likes to swap with guys. So